As a chap who chose a track by the mighty Captain Beefheart on Desert Island Discs a while ago, it comes as no surprise to me that Polly and the Captain have been in correspondence because PJ Harvey shares with Beefheart a need to make things new, to avoid repetition, to push the idea of what popular song can be and can become. Over 15 years, she's written many albums, including A Woman, A Man Walked By, Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea, and To Bring You My Love, and she's always written with a keen sense of shared history and culture and the place of love and desire in the crowded world. Her new album, Let England Shake, is about war and the pity of war, and perhaps that's why the Imperial War Museum invited to be a war artist. Let's hear a song and then we'll talk. So what's the first song, Polly?
This is called Written on the Forehead.
Right.
People throwing dinars at the belly dancers. In a sad circus by a trench of burning oil. People throw belongings, a lifetime's earnings among the scattered rubbish. Suitcases on the sidewalk. Date palms and orange and tangerine trees, and eyes that cry for everything. He turned to me and then surveyed the sea. Said, war is here in our beloved city. Some dove in the river and tried to swim away through tons of sewage, fate written on their foreheads. Date palm and orange and tangerine trees, and eyes that cry for everything. Let it burn, let it burn, let it burn, burn, burn. Let it burn, let it burn, let it burn, burn my heart. Let it burn, let it burn. Let it burn, let it burn, let it burn, burn my heart. Let it burn, let it burn.
Thank you very much, PJ Harvey. Now, seems to me that in this album and the song you've just sung, you're looking outwards, and yet a lot of your previous work has been what happens inside. I just wondered about what happened, what brought about that change. Is it partly the times that we're in?
I think a lot of it was to do with feeling a greater sense of wanting to tackle something of what's happening around us all at the moment. I think many people have been feeling that, this urge to actually get on and say something. It feels more urgent somehow.
Because somehow it seems that in big times like we're in, maybe introspection can be a luxury. You know, so looking out, it connects with more people, I guess.
It's definitely a very different way of writing. I found that certainly when it came to making songs out of the words that I'd written, wanting to have many voices rather than just one voice, and it felt like it needed to be much more of a community that were saying these songs.
Now, I know that for the research for this album, you read a lot of T.S. Eliot and Harold Pinter. I just wonder what that reading gave to you in terms of language and in terms of insight on the kind of things you wanted to write.
Well, I looked in many different areas, actually. In terms of writers, I was mostly reading Harold Pinter's work, not just his plays, but a lot of his poetry, a lot of his political essays, but particularly his poetry. T.S. Eliot, I was just reading everything, but I was looking a lot at films as well, particularly Stanley Kubrick's work, Ken Loach, a wonderful film called Waltz with Bashir by Ari Folman. And I went to a lot of theatre productions. I really admired Jez Butterworth as a playwright, and I saw Jerusalem. Ian Rickson, who directed that, I like a lot of his work as well. But these were all, it was many different areas that I wanted to absorb from. A lot of artwork as well, a lot of Goya's work and Salvador Dali. I find myself much more influenced by the visual arts rather than other poets, really. But I don't know, I think it's probably because I come from a visual arts background that I'd find very stimulating.
As we chat, could you pass a guitar to your man who's going to tune a guitar? That'd be great, because this is a live show. It's interesting, isn't it, that a lot of songwriters will take from the visual arts. But in your work, there's such a lot of poetry. The song we just heard, one of the verses, I talked to an old man by the generator standing on the gravel by the fetid river. I'm just so interested in how that came about, that rhyme, generator and fetid river. I just love the way that... I'm interested in process. How did that come about?
Oh, it's hard to remember. I don't know if you find that too. When you're running with a poem, it sort of unfolds itself in front of you and you just follow it. And sometimes when you go back and try and remember how it happened, it's almost impossible because you just have to have the faith and follow it as it's there, happening in the moment, unfolding. I can't remember exactly. I often speak the words out loud as I'm working on them. And with this whole album, I worked on the words quite separately from the music. I spent many, many months, probably a couple of years, just writing words and trying to make them work on a page as poetry and to be read aloud or shouted. And that was, I found, quite a good discipline. And at the end of the day, I ended up with a much stronger song for it. And that's the first time that I'd tried writing like that. So often, if I'm just standing there reciting what I'm doing, then naturally you look for the rhyme. It just comes.
And that helps as well, I think, with the rhythm, because to me, when you're performing a poem, the performance poets will agree with that the breath helps, doesn't it? When you've got the breath, the breathing is somehow, breathing when you're performing a poem is different to the breathing when you're singing a poem, I guess. The Verb, as you know, is a programme that delights in the process of writing, but a lot of writers say to me that in the end, the process is a mystery. Is that how it is for you?
That's a tough one to answer. There's certainly a degree of mystery to it. I feel for myself that, to begin with, there's an awful lot of work that has to be done in terms of study, hard work, research, collating, gathering, rewriting, writing. And then when you get to a certain point, you have to discard all of that and just leave yourself wide open for it to present itself. And that's sort of the most frightening part. So it's a mixture of mystery and lots of hard work and preparation, I find.
So the hard work and preparation leads, in a sense, to the mystery being accessible.
Yes, it's almost that, just being prepared to then throw it out there into whatever's going to happen.
I know you belong to a poetry club. Is that right? Is that a kind of workshop
I do,
that you
actually,
go to?
yeah. Just in the last year or so. Again, it was just happens locally to where I live in Dorset, and I found I wanted extra help, extra feedback. So I think it can be quite a solitary experience to just write alone, and it can be really helpful to sit with a group of people that all do the same thing you do and reflect on each other's work, and you get to learn how to take yourself out of just being the only person that's looking at your words and be able to look at them as if it's somebody else that doesn't understand what your thought process was, and for that they still have to work. So it's certainly helping me.
So
a
you
lot.
take the work along in an unfinished state. And,
Yes, yeah, we just workshop things that are not quite finished but they're having trouble with.
Now the album's called Let England Shake, and there's a track called simply England. The next song we're going to hear has got the line, "Take me back to England and the grey, damp filthiness of ages." Are you trying to head towards your own artistic definition of what England is, do you think?
I don't know. With that song, again, it was. I often see songs or poems. I see them visually before I actually can write them down, and I can remember specifically with this. It was almost like a camera shot. Started off wide angle, you've got a full view, and then it slowly focuses and comes in closer and closer until you end up on the one thing, the rose at the end of it. And often with songwriting or word writing, I find that it's almost like looking at a still from a film or a certain scene from a film and just writing down what I'm seeing.
All right, well, let's hear The Last Living Rose.
And battered books and fog rolling down behind the mountains, on the graveyards and Dead Sea captains. Let me walk through the stinking alleys to the music of drunken beatings, past the Thames River glistening like gold hastily sold for nothing, nothing. Let me watch nightfall on the river, the moon rise up and turn to silver, the sky move, the ocean shimmer, the head shake, the lost living rose quiver.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to PJ Harvey. Her new album, Let England Shake, is out now on Island Records.